All right, I think we are live. So, so I'm just checking the comments. What are the comments? What is this comment? Quant was tough. DLR got one set right. What else? 95 percentile is at 70 marks. Okay, okay, okay. You've got some nice comments from Mr. Rex Chaudhary, venting his frustration. Very difficult paper. All right, so I think so I scored OA QA probably 8. Please help. 60. Okay, Shivku, I think we can start.
Yeah. So let's get on with the analysis. So if you look at the overall scores, this is, I mean, we've taken out the data about 10-15 minutes back, right? And some people were still appearing for the test. So broadly, this is where it is in terms of the percentiles, not too far away from the CAT 2022 percentiles at various landmark milestones. Um, so the section that people seems to have done quite well is VARC. Maybe Jijo, you can take us through that. And
Yeah, so basically Arcs is in, so I think someone will have to
okay.
admit Arcs in. So basically, if I look at this test, right, the way in which I look at it, I was very surprised to look at this score distribution. If you ask me, so if we compare to, let's say, the CDC 7, which was All India Open Mock Cat, the score
Mm,
distribution was very similar to this. It was probably
mm,
similar to this. And when he
mm,
came to CDC 8, there was difference. For example, if I look at the last countdown cat, the passages were slightly easier to read, right? I think the VA was slightly tough, right? Here, I believe that the passages was sort of not straightforward. I think there was at least the first passage and the last passage, though it was not that difficult to read. But I think if for someone who kind of understood what the passage is, then they can answer. But I believe that VA would have been slightly better this time around than the last test. So that I believe is basically what happened. So people who are very happy with scoring 30 would have then realized, oh God, nothing has happened. I'm still stuck at something like 80th percentile. I can things like that would have happened. So that would have been frustrating. So this probably tests your score would have been higher than what is usual, but then eventually others have done better than you. So this is sort of the postmortem that happens after every cat, and this is the scenarios.
so what was your expectation? What did you said that you was a little surprised. What was your expectation?
हाँ मतलब इतना नहीं था. I
Hmm.
was saying at least about 6 marks down. But I think
Okay.
if you look at the accuracy versus attempt percentage, then things will be slightly clear. So okay, so let me start with the VA part. I think question number 17. I can tell you we can write there. Question number 17 was paragraph summary. So if you can write, so let's if you start with the PS, that was paragraph summary. Question 18 is paragraph completion. Question number 19 was paragraph jumble. Question number 20 was paragraph summary. Question number 21 was paragraph jumble. Question number 22 was paragraph jumble. Question number 23 was paragraph summary. Question number 24 was paragraph completion. Right. So if you start by looking at the paragraph summary, so the first question had about less than 30% accuracy. But if you look at question number 19 and question number 23, that is almost close to about 59% accuracy. So it is looking
Hmm.
green, looking yellow, but it's probably more green. I think question number 20, the next one, the one that you
Yeah.
marked.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
This one.
so that was so.
It's
So
close
if
to
I look
almost
at
60%. Hmm.
so if you look at that, the two paragraph summary question was crackable, right? And it's very strange that a lot of people did not attempt question number 23, right? So that will be a missed
Hmm.
opportunity. And if I then go to paragraph jumble, you see paragraph jumble question number 19 without negative marking has got that much accuracy, means that was straightforward. And I don't see any reason as
Hmm.
to why anyone would make mistake. And even if you look at other two paragraph jumble question, it was also pretty crackable, right?
Hmm.
I can see a reason as to why somebody would have made mistake in question number 22, but there is no reason. So the paragraph jumble was manageable, paragraph summary was manageable, and I think the first 17th question of paragraph summary was probably a silly mistake that many did. I think just fell for a stupid trap. And we have the paragraph completion question. The first one, 18th question, was slightly painful, but the other question was pretty high. So if I just count, I'm sure that I would not be surprised if there are the people who would have got scores of 15 or 18, or at least 12, 13, 15, 18. So this, I think, did not happen the last time around in CDC number 7. If I look at it, this does not happen. So
Hmm.
and then anyone, I think if I look at the percentage attempt of those VA questions, the mountain of, let's say, that attempt is just barely crossing 80 percentage in a paragraph jumble question. But on average, when I
Hmm.
look at it, it's about just what 70 percentage is the attempt, which means
Hmm.
around 30% of the people just ignored VA. I think this would have been complete disaster. And I think a lot of reason as to why people just ignore VA is because there is a feeling that VA pata nahi, matlab, sometimes it happens, sometimes it does not happen. But the key is that VA is like 8 questions. And 8 question here at least you got an opportunity. I think I'm sure that some of students watching this would have got 6 questions correct, maybe. So 6 threes or 18. So that kind of would have pushed the scores, right? So that's a VA. So one of the lessons, one of the takeaway from here is, so don't assume. I think one of the things that happens with many students is that they just pre decide that I'm good in paragraph jumble, I'm not good in paragraph jumble, I'm good in paragraph summary, I'm not good in paragraph summary, forgetting to understand that at the end of the day, the level of difficulty or the way in which options are framed, or the paragraph that is given to you is at it's finally what it is. So not having the pre-decided notion would have helped them. So that is a VA story. So next time when you take the next mock, I don't know what is going to happen with VA, the next mock, or even the actual CAT. It may be difficult, it may
Hmm.
be easy. Who cares? But at least I have to start with the mindset that I'm going to look at all the questions and get it. So if people have went with the mindset, so that is one story. If I look at the 4 passages, I think passage number 1 was about human nature. No, not human nature, nature and human, right? So that was about ontotaxonomical thinking. I think that was the first passage. Um, ontotaxonomical.
Jijo, can I
Uh,
just interrupt for a moment here?
sure, sure, sure.
Before you go into each of the 4 paragraphs on a larger scale, I don't know how many of them are realizing it. If you look at the last 8 CDCs, very uncannily, the fourth paragraph, the number of people attempting has gone down.
Yeah,
Now, it is okay that somebody does only 3 passages. Like we always say that, okay, ideally, agar kar sakte hai to 4 kar do. If you can finish all your 4 passages, do 4. If you can do only 3, it's fine. But I think it appears to me, correct me if I'm wrong, both of you have been also seeing the other CDCs too, that by the time people come to the fourth passage, the number of people attempting the fourth passage percentage wise is reduced. For example, even this particular thing is about 30%.
Hmm.
And very interestingly, out of the 4 questions, almost all 4 of them were easy.
correct. The two
So
LOs is more than 50% accuracy. Yeah, so it's like
yeah,
all very easy.
exactly. So somewhere I think while I don't want to harp too much on the strategy part of it, but somewhere I think we are missing. I think students are missing out on the trick that sometimes if they don't like a passage, they can just, even if they've spent 2-3 minutes after trying to read, and they see that the questions are also a little more trickier, they can just leave it and go to the next paragraph. Something which we always say it in data interpretation, logical reasoning, but somewhere that it doesn't get translated in RC. Your ideas on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So here, I think if I were to just to give you, so one is that in general, I've seen the fourth passage having the same treatment, right? So
Exactly.
people are obviously starting by saying that, okay, so one is maybe they are not. So attitude is doesn't matter. Let me just do as many answers as possible. Start with the first one, second one, third one, and won't have time to do it. Or maybe there are some people who would have read all the 4 passages in the beginning, had a look at it, and decided. And I can see, for example, for this particular test case, I can see as to why somebody would have not done the last passage. Uh,
Mhm.
so, so I think it is basically has to do with how the first paragraph was phrased. Uh, but the rest of the story was very simple. So, in fact, the fourth passage, I think it's about artificial intelligence or evolution's evolution. I think that's the fourth passage. Was taken from this book called Out of Control by Kelly. So the same book one of the passage source was in CAT 2022. I think slot number two. I think logic of BIOS. I think if you remember that particular passage, it's
Hmm.
so that passage also sounded very crazy. Okay, so and that book had some. Every chapter is crazy only. So when I looked at the book, the least crazy chapter was this about evolution, and it was just the first paragraph that sort of made the difference. I think the second passage was doctors' ethics, and this was about doctor strikes. No, doctor strike. I think that was. I mean, everybody felt that okay, this is something that I can manage. Doctor is going to strikes. What is there? So easy passage. The third passage was on history of philanthropy. I think this was about charitable institutions and exception, and turned out to be when I look at when you read the passages, the third passage was slightly painful to understand than the other three. Uh, in fact, the other three passage. So when I go, so one to answer your question, I think not solving passage number four would have been a in the hindsight of this after the event would be a total
I
miss.
mean, this is
Yeah.
almost an unprecedented kind of a accuracy that I see. Right.
Yeah. So basically, the passage was very painful to read. Okay. So
Hmm.
the treatment was okay. Somebody who read the passage, understood the passage, should be rewarded. Okay, so which is something that you always see in the cat, right? I think Arts will always say this, and one of the feedback that was given once upon a time with respect to earlier CDC was the इतना depth में क्यों जाते हैं? Okay, so it's that cat actually tests people's broad understanding. So if I look at the way in which the all the questions were like that, with broad understanding. If you understand the passage and even if you look at the traps in the actual cat, it's not too crazy. I mean, it's cat options are discernible, right? The option tries are discernible. So it was one that spirit that these set of questions were created. So people missed it. Sort of the last, he said, see the miss. And those who in fact chose passage number three instead of four would come back and say, what happened to me? Because if you look at passage number three, there is no green. I think, for example, question number 10 would have been slightly easier, or easiest of all questions. So that would have caused it trouble. So my feeling is that there were a good number of students who were looking at across the passages to benefited. So even if you look at passage number one, the the first question itself was sort of 50% above. So if you just keep 50%, there were three questions that could have been picked. The second passage also had three. The last passage had four. So like 4 plus 3 plus 3 is what? 13. 39 marks worth of questions available. So with let's say a couple of negatives here and there, so you can still get to about what 35, 36 plus another 15, 20 coming from the last place, last VR. So the majority of the students that I've seen ARCs does three passages and VA.
No,
There's a
no, I see
minority that
that. Yeah. I think the people who get that extra 45, 50 marks are the people who obviously try to do all four, and the VA also, trying to do 24. One question, one myth I feel, I just want, maybe we can discuss that. Maybe Shivku can also add in. If I reduce my speed in RC, my accuracy will increase.
no, it won't.
This is a myth a lot of people live by and are a lot more conservative when they're doing. I'm not saying you should randomly mark. Doesn't make sense any which way. However, I think trying to kind of reduce just because you're making more mistakes does not really help. And I genuinely believe that out of the four passages which will come in CAT, there will be at least two of them where it will be very easily readable also, if not the questions. So readability wise, there will not be a problem. There could be obviously one like Jija keeps giving very obscure passage, very heavy passage kind of things where you can't understand the passage, but the questions may actually be easy. So I think that chances one has to take, giving that 28-30 minutes in your RC continues to be my only solution to anything that people can do.
I completely agree with what you're saying. So the assumption that people have is that I have to understand every single sentence. I have to get to the depth of every single thing to answer this. And second is for some reason people say that I have to read. If I read slower, I understand it better, which is not the case. I think everybody has a pace of comprehension. They have to stick
Yeah.
to it. So that, and I think the decision happened. I think this is something that I mentioned last time. When you start thinking that I'm going to do two RCs only, that's when I'm start. I will obviously take the 30 minutes and fill those into two RCs. It is because so the reason why I'm taking 15 minutes to solve an RC is not because that is my capability. That is because I made a decision to do only 2 RCs. So this keeping it loose and say that I will do as much as possible. See, if I, for example, simply look at the passage number 1, all that is saying is that between the way in which we look at nature is that we either think that nature and us are one, or we are very different. And the author says this thinking is whatever onto taxonomical thinking, and this thinking is wrong. So that we are, I think our belief is that human beings are amazing. Rest is plucking. Yeah, belief is wrong. Yeah, passage. There's nothing else in the passage. So if you crack that idea, the 4 questions you would have got. I don't know why people made mistake in the last question, which was just, I know why people made mistake in the last question. All you have to do is to put one answer, all of the options listed here. So there'll be some 50% who will get excited and say mark that particular answer. There's no reason as to why people should have made mistake on question number 4. So I think the takeaway from here is this is something that we've been telling every single time, right? Because you don't know eventually at what percentile what score is going to get when you take the test. So the thing that you got to do is that you have to solve as many questions as possible. That is where you start with. And for somebody to reach passage number 4, they could have done it, because if let's say you decided for whatever reason you did passage number 3, you went to the question is very confusing. You do as much as you can, leave it and just read the next passage. You would have caught at least out of the 4 questions. 2 did not require too much of understanding. The 2 other questions actually picked up 2 sentences from the passage and asked you to sort of understand the meaning of the sentence. That I think that those were the 2 sentences. I think question number 14 was a sentence from a passage, and question number 16 was a sentence from a passage. And 14 has got 75% accuracy. Question number 16 had got 82% accuracy. That was basically 2 sentences, interpreting 2 sentences from the passage. And that in fact, question number 16 was so easy to. So the options were very discernible. I think, and so to speak, a missed opportunity. So we have this is 8 cities, 9, 10. How many more? 7 more.
Yeah, 7 more.
You'll get all sort of variation. So at this level, you have to be consistent in the approach, saying that I want to do as many questions as possible, and do it in such a manner that I want to get reasonable accuracy with respect to questions. So if you have that attitude, I'm sure life will be okay. Yeah.
So one other thing, everybody who's listening to this, I want you to remember this one very, very, if I were to put it a quintessential point, whether it's a complete book that you read or a small passage that you read, typically there is one single idea that is getting carried.
Correct.
Somewhere I think we keep missing for the you're trying to, like Jesus sir has just now said, you try to read every word, try to understand every sentence, try to understand that okay kya passage hone wala hai, kind of things. That is not the idea behind when you are reading the first time. Like Anant Agnihotri a few minutes back has put a very interesting point. He does not have any kind of a strategy how much time he spends per passage. The idea is, hey, can I understand what am I reading? If I don't understand the first 3 lines, no problem. Something else will understand. Something else. At the end of 400 to 600 words, that's all you have. There will be a point and a contra point at max. If you understand that, chances are that out of the 4 questions, you will be able to guess 2 of the answers without much of an ado. Now, don't take my word or take my sentence as a most important thing. What I'm saying is, now we have done 8 CDCs. You have with you 8 into 4, 32 passages in front of you. Now let me ask you to do one small thing. Go to these 32 passages over the next 3 days. Your only point in reading each of the passage is not to do the questions, but when you read that 500, 600 words passage, can you broadly identify कि भाई बोल क्या रहा है? What on earth is this author trying to say? Because if you can get that correctly, take my word, then getting into a little bit of a nitty-gritty of a question where the answer is, where the same sentence has been picked up for an answer, etc., becomes, or for a question, becomes much, much more easier. That's my, if I were to give you Gyan for VARC, specifically for RC, this is what I would say.
Yeah. I think what you said, I would take it as a gospel truth. Instead of, so at the end of the day, every author has got one purpose. कोई purpose है लिखा है. And you're when you read a passage, you're always asking the question, what is the author trying to prove? So why did you write this thing? And then if you just get the idea, there'll be a lot of options you can just eliminate because it doesn't match the tone of the passage, or doesn't. So elimination works really well. So I'm also probably guessing that a lot of scores have improved in general because of people are writing the test more and learning it. Maybe that's the case. So if that would have been the case, then a lot of people are not writing the mock test, is not learning. So let's say that even if, let's say, you got a score of 30 and it's 85 percentile, deep down, please do understand this is based on the people who are very serious takers. You're taking all this test. So you continue, don't take harm. I think you just do the analysis, and especially I think I like the idea that what Aksar has just said, which is to go back to look at all the passages and learn from them, and then I believe that all the passages are pretty good. I mean, there is all the passages from diverse sort of sources and all sort of passages are there. I think you will get good opportunity of learning. So that's all with VRC. Yeah.
Jijo, one question is, I mean, does it help to, I think I have got this question from some students, does it help to read the choices or questions before starting of the passage? Do you think it does?
But
Or it
DLR makes
by
sense. DLR, why would it see at the end of the day?
For RC doesn't.
For example, it's even though I say there are different type of questions, let's say this type of question, that type of question, this type of question. At the end of the day, the correct answer is there in the passage.
correct.
So either
So
of either
this question normally comes for people who are struggling to read fast, right? I mean, which is can I be a little more careful when I read what I'm reading?
No. I think there's a big problem. So what the two things will happen. The first thing that will happen is that first of all, every single passage reading process is dictated by the question. एक तो तुम्हारे पास problem है reading का. On top of it, you're not reading in a consistent manner. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to read in a consistent manner, right? So consistency is going to come if I ignore the question. That is number one. Number two is that whatever is the question, who cares? The question will have options either aligned to the passage or not aligned to the passage. Information is there in the passage. If you look at CAT paper, you start from anywhere. अब कहीं से उठा लो 27 से उठा लेते हैं 2017 से 2022. There are most of the questions, I would say 95% of the question, maybe even close to 100% of the question does not require in-depth analysis of the passage at all. So if, let's say, if I get every single paragraph, a passage has got a structure, right? There is every paragraph has got one idea. These one ideas are connected together in terms of what author is trying to say. So if I just get the broad understanding of the passage, I will be able to answer the question. This is like a myth that you've created a thing that somehow if I read the passage question first, automatically kuch to hoga. What? Nothing's going to happen. Your fundamental problem is it's not about even reading fast, reading slow. That is nothing to do with the pace of reading. It has got to do with my lack of comfort with respect to the topic that I have on front of me, my lack of confidence in terms of reading, it's lack of engagement with the text that is given to me. It's not knowing how to, not looking at. You're basically, one last thing I want to say is, for most of the students, the purpose of reading is to complete reading. So if everybody says that I want to read a passage to understand main idea, nobody reads passage to understand main idea because everybody reads the passage, just finish reading the passage because magically you can ask a question. I should have a purpose when I read a passage to understand the idea. If you keep that in mind, I think this any other advice that anybody gives, look at the question as a useless advice. So you have to look at a question in DLR, okay? Because in DLR
I
they're
still
not
have
evaluating options.
I think just to take a point from you, Jijo and Shivku, just to answer that, even if I want to read a question, if I am a good student of RC, if I'm a good English student, so to say, only then, even then, reading a question will even make certain sense. We are talking about if those guys who are already decent in RC or a verbal RC, they should very quickly simply read the passage, understand the broad idea of the question. I'm not saying read fast. I'm saying read aram se, but understand the broad idea of the question, and the 4 questions will be easy. Trying to do that, the reverse, trying to read the question when you are already bad at even understanding a passage of 600 words, I think it is going to be disastrous for that student who is actually bad in English or bad in vocabulary and bad, not so great in grammar. I would say that will be a very, very bad strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So let's can we just look at the DILR is something which I really liked doing, Jijo. I don't know what the scores are because I was just recording the 4 passages, and I have first. In fact, this time I have also made sure that how do you select the 4 passages, or similar to what we did for RT99, what should be the order in which the passages should be in terms of complexity and familiarity. I kind of made sure that there's an intro of about 10-12 minutes, and then obviously went ahead and solved the 4 passages or the 4 DI sets as far as DILR is concerned. Let me see what the scores say. Shivko, if you can just show.
Just a second.
I'll leave. Alex, I think you'll.
Sure.
Yeah. Just Jijo, take care.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. Yeah.
Just a second. Sharing my screen.
Right, Srirag, actually. And Ishan is saying, sir, I have a high fluctuation. It goes as low as 4. What should I do? Ishan, don't worry about that 4 scores. You know, sometimes Virat Kohli also gets out at 0 and 5. And he makes 100. So Ishan Gangwani, the way to look at it is that was not a great day for you, and be done with it. Yeah, exactly, Naitik Roy. I will agree with you. Don't spam with asking so many questions. Makes no sense, frankly.
Just a sec.
Sure.
No, 1 second. What happened to my?
Or I can do one thing. Let me see if I can present. I'll share the screen. Let me see if.
No. I think it's come back. Okay. Can you see it? Yeah. Are you able to see it?
No, I can't see it yet.
Oops.
Let me do one thing. Let me just check whether I can show this. And if you see if you can. No, I am not able to share. Can you see by any chance?
No, I'm not able to. 1 second.
You're not able to see. Okay.
Just give me a second.
Sure. So those of you are asking for picking the right set, how do you pick up, etc., kind of things. I would like you to go through the video analysis, guys. The first intro of the DILR video analysis. I am guaranteeing you that you will have some idea about what we do. And as we go along with the next 7 CDCs, similar kind of input, if you get it, I think you will be ready. And Ram Prasad, if you're finding that you got -1 and feeling sad about it, what you need to do is just close this. Don't worry about this particular paper, or just solve all the 4 sets without worrying that it's a CDC. Chances are that you'll start getting much better. Shivko, I can't.
Are you able to see the screen?
No, sir. I'm not able to see the screen.
Why are you not able to see it?
For some reason, I think. Ravi is calling.
Can you see?
Ravi. Yeah. It is now coming. It's now coming. Yeah, okay. Shivko, I can see. Just make it into a
full screen.
Presentable, full screen mode. Yeah, presentation mode, please. Thanks.
1 second.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it okay,
friends? Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Oh wow! You know what? I said 21 marks, 21, 22 marks will be 95, 97 percentile. That is my last comment on the that is the fourth set I have taken, and I have recorded it in the afternoon, Shivku. That 21 to 22 will be 97th percentile in this particular CAT exam, in this particular CDC. I am feeling elated about it actually, but this was to be honest, a very not so easy DILR. Not because it was tough, but it was because appeared lengthy. And I'll tell you why it was lengthy also, because there were two sets which were thoroughly data interpretation prone. And people, very unfortunately, if you look at the last 3-4 years, there were more of logical reasoning questions. There were more of logical reasoning sets. And hence, somewhere I think people have stopped working on data interpretation. Somewhere people have stopped working on basic calculations. And hence, they would have missed out amazing opportunities as far as this particular DILR sets are concerned. If I were to really look at all the 4 sets, none of the 4 sets were really difficult, but it would appear extremely difficult in an exam kind of a scenario. Now, obviously, as a few of you have already put it right now, who said that the 4th set, which is an arrangement set, there are 14 floors. First and 14th floor are not occupied. There are 8 people, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, who are occupying these places. Only 5 conditions are given. Actually, there are more than 5 conditions, because in each condition there were more than one such condition given in every point. But even if you say about 8-9 conditions given, the number of variables that you needed to do were only 2 of them. A, who are the person. 2, what is the department that each one of them looked for, or they were belonging to. And of course, very, very simple numbers like, prime numbers. There was, for every of the prime number, there was a person present. For every multiple of 4, there was no person present, etc. This particular set, Shivku, frankly speaking, if somebody had given about 13-14 minutes, I'm not saying you will require more than that, but 13-14 minutes, you will crack almost all 5. It's, in fact, you can see that clearly also. Male, female also was absolutely clearly given. It was a little lengthy, Arihanta Sharma, and a lot of it was very, very possible. But again, I said, because there were 14 number of points, 8 people sitting up with a lot of blanks, it would have taken for a normal person, for an average person, about 14-15 minutes. For a good student of an LR, I think this could have been cracked in something like 10-11 minutes. That is what I would say. And you can clearly see, if somebody can get about 4 or 5 of these correct, 5 3s are 15 or 4 3s are 12, that would have catapulted them to an 80-85 percentile without much of an ado. Once again, Karthik Modi and everybody else, 16 minutes is what Arihanta Sharma is saying. Perfectly fine. I am saying that's not a big deal. What I am saying is, not coming to that set, not looking at that set would have been a disaster, according to me. Now, that is the set number 5, set number 4, which frankly speaking, anybody and everybody should have done, because it doesn't require any background in DILR to be able to do that. A little bit of a logic, focus, concentration, step-by-step learning. There is nothing at all in that. And I really felt good doing that, Shivku. This is as far as the...
This is one of those conventional LR questions, right?
It's a familiarity. See, one of the things that we keep talking about, familiarity is very, very high. Complexity is about average. It is not easy. Complexity is average. I think a traditional set, and mind you, in the actual CAT exam also, you will always get a traditional set. And therefore, this is a doable case. Point number 1. The first set, in fact, the first question itself, this is about crackers. The first question, if they read the question, they would have got the answer. If they read the question, they would have got the answer. In fact, I remember that question so easily. What is the maximum percentage profit Raju has earned by selling any full pack? This question, if they were not afraid of data interpretation, Shivku, the first question, there is nothing else. 10 is becoming 100, is becoming 120, that the highest is 20%. The
So
problem
actually
is,
40% of people have left it.
yeah, exactly. The problem is people read more than what is there in certain questions. One of the reasons why people find a cat tough, and I will say this again for what Jijo has said about VRC also, they try to be very, very, you know, uh, afraid, very cautious, over cautious, if I may say. And that's exactly what happened. The first question, a very straightforward question, if you just read it correctly, even if it taken 4 minutes to read the entire goddamn thing, you would have got 3 marks for the taking. Even the other two questions, in fact, whether it is 26th one, the next question, I'm very surprised that only 40-50% of them got it right, but it would have been very easily solvable by people who, if they only looked at what should they do, you know. Like, in fact, Apur was saying even 22nd was very easy too. It was like, 10 to 7, 210 sparkles were sold either in 10 or 20 packs. What is the least amount of profit? You just check which one will you get the least amount of profit. Out of the 210, 200 of them, which is 10 packs of 20, 10 packs of 20, you sell it at full packs, and 10 pack of 10, sell it at the higher profit, you will get your answer. I mean, इससे easy तो हो ही नहीं सकता. इससे easy तो हो सकता. So what I'm saying is 5 questions,
So,
which
so
is what I
by
said.
looking at maxima, minima, do people really shy away from the questions?
Exactly. Which is where in fact, we discussed this question also when we were talking about it. The fourth question, that is 28th question, which minima, maxima, people get a little afraid of it. But they should not have, the 27th, 28th, there could have been issues when they solved the question and we changed the answers. But 25th and 26th, you would have solved it, got 6 marks without much of an ado. And this is what I said, Shivku. These 6 marks and the last 5 marks, the fourth set 5 marks, 7 questions, 21 marks, 95 to 97 percentile. That is a guarantee. Provided, like we keep saying to students, bhai, please look at all the 4 sets. Now, not only that, in fact, the second set also, not second, I would say the third set, 35 to 39. This is the third set I will go to first. A lot of people made a mistake on this. This was a BCCI set where there were 4 slabs, contracts given to contract. Yeah, 2 contracts, and experience of people and the percentage of players. By looking at the percentage, 1% gave you 21 2 by 3. 21 2 by 3 is 65 by 3%. 65 by 3% is 65 by 300 in fraction. 65 by 300 is 13 by 60. The percentage is 13 by 60. The minimum has to be 60. This kind of question, Shivku, over the last 7 CDCs and many more papers that we have given, prime mocks even included, fraction, this was there so many times. So, 35th question should have been like a cinch.
But
One more question.
the number of people themselves, I thought this is not as difficult as the attempts seem to suggest.
I'm very, very appalled at this kind of a thing.
It also
Similarly,
looked probably new. Did it look new to you?
it did not. Maybe I think you and I are so many times, 20 years we have been writing, we don't find this any
used to
new
it,
anymore.
yeah.
We're used to it. But you see, again, what I said for VARC guys, RC especially, now this is the 8th CDC, 8 4s are 32 passages you have, 32 DI sets you have. Add to that again 15 prime mocks we have given you. Right? You have 50 days to go. 50 days to go. Don't do anything else but solve and resolve the CDCs and the prime mocks, and you would have got it. And incidentally, let me tell you something. Even the 30 to 34, the second set, it appeared difficult for people, obviously. But trust me, the first, I mean, I am surprised actually. First three questions, Shivko, were easy. The last two had more work to do.
So you, I mean, I'm seeing a pure, perfect inverse relationship. I'm seeing attempts to accuracy.
I can't believe this at all because, again, I don't know how many of you have tried it. Please try it out. Please go
This
through my
this was
solution,
that.
at least the first one.
This is
A, B,
the
C, D, E, the algorithm, the five content writers between physics and
correct,
maths.
correct.
This thing.
Uh,
It was,
yeah.
it appears to be a five element Venn diagram, but it is not.
And there was a question like this, very similar. When we were including it, we were wondering whether to include it or not, because there was a question like this in one of the previous CDCs, which had something to do with the guy visiting, people in universities from different countries. The way this representation is very similar to the representation in that particular question.
Absolutely. In fact, this is where Anjali Prasad, you are crying because the last set was my thing I couldn't do, which means you did not come to that, or you maybe spent a time and without focus. I am saying once again, this DILR set is a typical, this DILR is a typical slot 2 last year. Slightly more difficult maybe because of the calculations, but it is not at all undoable, and getting a 95 percentile was definitely possible if only people looked at all the four sets and given time for the fifth set and 1 2 questions of set 1, 1 2 questions of set 3, and maybe 1 2 questions of set 2 also. This is something which I have always said, and GP sir used to say it all the time. He is not there today. Jijo says it. Shivko, you say it 100 times. You don't have to finish a full 5 question set. If you can do only 2 questions, do 2 questions and just get out of that. That is your mantra for DILR. That is my simple take on this.
I mean, I'm actually surprised that people have got it right here,
How did
but
they
I've
get it right
actually
when they are attempted less? Yeah, yeah. Very. I think the guys who solved it, I think fine. But I would say you're right. This is the last 2 questions, to be honest, were a little more lengthier, and
Hmm.
it took a little more time than the first three. First three, you will, if you crack it. First three was straightforward. I'm talking about the set 2. Please look at my analysis. I think it will help you. Kind of things. Possible,
My
Mukul, but we
suggestion to
don't
all
know.
of you is please solve it all over again, right?
Yeah. Liquid
And
shots,
even
please
the
don't.
third one. I mean, if see, I was thinking that if I look at, even if somebody thinks it's a 5 set representation and is not able to figure this out, BCCA thing I thought was a
Should
little
have been
more
done.
direct. It's a
It
little
was
more
very.
direct, because this at least needed a little more of thinking by drawing the table and making conclusions. But I don't think this needed so much, except for probably the last question where you we asked about the debut and all of that. So
That debut was a kind of a googly, but it was, once you understand the question, you will understand it easily.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Did you get to look at the quant paper, Arts?
Very broadly, but I
Okay.
haven't really gone through the questions as such. But I think this is like very, not very difficult. At
Huh.
least that's what I
So
felt.
the in fact, maybe it's become a little more difficult than what we wanted it to be. So if I look at the way the paper has moved, right, it's just kind of towards the later part. I think people are finding it a little, were finding it tough to, at least this basically tells me that there are this 8 to 9 questions that are okay, conventional, fairly doable, right, and um, for a significant part of the other questions. So even if I look at the attempts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, who have only 4 of the questions, 50% of the people have attempted. So it kind of tells me that people found this far tougher than what it was. Um, but while creating the paper, we knew for a fact that people will perceive it to be a little tough. But I thought that maybe 6 to 7 questions was something that was doable. going beyond 15 questions in this paper was not easy. So um, if I look at the data, I'm not surprised by this, because but maybe I thought that it will probably, the 99.5 percentile will get to closer to about 40. um, no, the um, reason why we thought that, there last times, if you look at the last I am Lucknow paper, the DI was a little challenging, the quant was very easy. um, Now when I compare it with last DI vis-a-vis uh, the quant, right, last quant was, in fact, CDC 8, CDC 7, the quant was easier than the quant that we have here. We said that we will kind of toggle that a little, make it a little more tougher. So that's why add knocked off couple of easy questions and added two more questions where there's a little bit of thinking. So there you will find about, there are 3 to 4 questions in this paper which even after the exam you will find it, I mean, a little difficult to think the logic, right? So there are about 18 odd questions that are standard, right? About 4 questions that are a little, you would say that even post CAT, while you're doing the analysis, you'll find it a little challenging. There are about 5 to 6 questions that I would put in the category of, among these 18, about 5 to 6 that are in the difficult category. And we have about 6 to 7 questions that are in the moderate level. And the rest of it are the, so let me see if I can share the paper.
See, one thing I'll tell you something, Shivku, and this is what I think every student should realize. Whether the paper is very tough or the paper is easy, somewhere you will always find, my friends, if you carefully go through the 22 questions in any goddamn CDC original CAT paper, also, whichever slot you will get, you will find 7 to 8 questions not only doable, but which will be direct. If you know the basic concept and the formula, you should be able to get it. I think that is what even the IIMs try to do. Whether it's IIM Lucknow trying to give a paper or any other IIM giving the paper, you will find that 1/3 of the questions, that is about 7 to 8, will be where, if you know the basic concept and the basic formula, you should be able to solve it comfortably. Now, believe that always. Many a time you don't believe this. Same thing with your verbal, same thing with your DI. You have to go into the paper saying that, boss, मुझे पता है कि मुझे 25 मार्क तो आने वाले हैं या 20 से ज्यादा तो आने वाले हैं. If you can get that 20, 25, 20, 25, 20, 25 in all of them, you are talking about a 97 percentile any which way. It doesn't matter whether it's an original CAT paper or your CDC. See, now we have done 8 CDCs, 8 analysis, and the consistency with which the numbers have been. I think you should be able to first be proud of Shivku sir for having produced such brilliant papers, system after, paper after paper, very similar to CAT, which means CAT also does the same thing. Can you digest that first? Can you assimilate that idea first? Because if you can, then you will not worry about how many are doing, how many are not doing. You will look at that, boss, kitna bhi mistakes ho, kitna bhi difficult ho, there will be 7-8 questions which will be easy. Keep that as your almost like the gospel truth, as Jijo would say it.
So I think ask, I mean, is there any sense in kind of going there into the exam with a target saying that DI plus quant I must score so much? I mean, do you think for a if does it make sense getting into an exam all saying that, okay, I will get about 20-24 in LRDI, about 25-30 in this? So because I get into an exam all thinking that अच्छा मुझे 2 sets तो करना ही है, right? Yeah, at least about 7 to 8 questions करना है, at least 10 questions करना है LRDI में. That's the minimum that I kind of, because that also puts a pressure when I'm doing the paper myself. And when it comes to quant, I say that I need to attempt at least in the first 30 minutes, I must get to at 12 to 13. If it doesn't go beyond that in the first 25-30 minutes, I suddenly feel that I'm not doing too well. So it is almost like saying that this 22 to 25 question must happen in DI and quant put together. That kind of gives me this feeling that, okay, ठीक है, exam ठीक जा रहा है. So ये जो because this paper, because after DI, people would have said, "Ki, acha, quant thoda aasan hoga," and suddenly you realize that the first 3-4 questions you're struggling. There is a fear factor that builds in, and hence people might end up spoiling, because if the first 3-4 questions I don't get it okay, I tend to kind of feel a little hazard कि अच्छा 5 minute हो गया, दो भी question नहीं हुआ है, right? And that kind of uh, makes me stumble in my getting to the desirable attempts. Do you think it makes sense to have a target, or you think that let's just go, I mean, explore?
I agree with you. In fact, Isha has been asking what's your final advice, and I'm going to give this as a very important advice for you. See, I will never go into an exam, and especially like a CAT exam or any competitive exam, with any predetermined number of attempts in mind or a predetermined score in mind. Despite whatever we have been seeing in the last 5-6 CAT papers, despite knowing that, okay, if I can get about 20 plus in quant and DI, I will get a 90 plus percentile kind of thing. Even after knowing this and seeing evidence of that in CDCs and the original CATs, my simple take is don't go with that kind of a thought process. But I'll tell you what kind of a thought, what kind of a feeling I will go with when I'm going into an exam like CAT. I will say, come what may, however difficult the paper is, there will be at least 8 questions to 7 to 8 questions in quant, at least 1 or 1.5 set in DI, and at least 2 RCs and 2-3 questions in VA, which will be doable by a very average person like me, even if I'm an average person. So therefore, I will go with that feeling that yaar, ye to karna hi karna hai. Now, if I can do better, it is not that I am going to get that as my achievement. That is not my achievement. That's my minimum. I would go and say, whatever may be the paper, there will be 7-8 easy questions. Now, if I suddenly find there are more easy questions, I'll be very, very happy, put my eyes more wider and start solving more and get about 10, 15, 16 attempts in quant, for example. But it is very, very important that a mindset has to, the kind of mindset you need to take it yourself into an exam is that there will be so many easy at least, and you will be surprised. And I've done this for the last 20 years. I've told this for students so many times. You will always get it. Now, think about what the statement you said, Shivku. You said, first 5 minutes, I have not even done one question. When I am with that kind of a thought process, saying that, boss, 7-8 easy milne wale hain, you know what? You can always say that no problems, yaar. First 5 questions mein nahi hai, to next 15 mein mujhe 8 mil jayenge. You know, that kind of a feeling will be there till the last moment. And I have seen that students with that kind of a positive mindset will be able to do better.
So one of the things that helps me identify, somebody was asking, how do you find easy questions, right? When I see a question one after the other, I find it, I mean, this is my personal view, right? Need not be relevant to you. I find that if I go one after the other, I think the tension for me builds up, right? So that is why, especially while doing quant or whether even RCs and LRDI, I always look at the question paper view, because the question paper view gives me a great overview about what the paper is like. So those who do not use the question paper view, maybe you must try this out, because it helps me very psychologically saying, अच्छा पहले 4 क्वेश्चन तो टफ दिख रहा है, बाकी तो बाद में आसान दिख रहा है. So I feel, and I always use that while doing CAT. I always, it gives me, it's a nice, beautiful hybrid system between online and offline. Because I remember when we used to do the offline, we used to say कि अच्छा हर पेपर में आपको, I mean, if it is 40 minutes, there are 5 sheets. I would say, okay, each sheet you must probably do it in about 4 minutes or 5 minutes. Then you tick the questions and you move ahead and then say, I'll come back and do it. That's exactly what I try to do when I do the. So I kind of write down and say, okay, I'm going to do 1, 4, 7, 10, 12, 15, and then try to finish this in the first 20 minutes and come back and do whatever. Maybe it helps, right? I don't know whether it helps or not. You must try it out to know whether it helps.
Absolutely.
So somebody's asking, what is question paper view? I think,
on the right hand top corner, On the right hand top corner of your screen, there is a question paper view, friends. When you're writing the mock, click on it. You will see that the entire section, you can see it in one go.
And in CAT also, you can do the same thing.
Yes.
Just try this out, and it helps to identify. I mean, I do that in RC, I do that in LRDI, right? I do that in quant especially. It helps me, right?
Correct. Absolutely. I think that's it. I think we have been saying the same thing. What is important, Shivku, and I think we have said this many times, is to calm oneself up. Don't get demotivated because of marks. You can't start thinking that every time your marks go up, you suddenly become great, and suddenly if your marks go down, you become worse. Your life is your ability cannot be so fickle that, or it keeps going up and down. It is normal to happen, but the whole idea of writing these mocks and analyzing these mocks and redoing these mocks is to make sure that by the time you reach the CAT paper on 26th November, much better familiarity will be there when you do the exam, and a lot more confidence, saying that okay, you will find a lot more questions in the actual CAT paper very similar to all the CDCs that you are doing. So trust us when we are saying this. Redo the papers n number of times, twice, thrice if required be. I think you are good to go.
Okay. And somebody was asked, will the paper LOD of sets be as tough as this in CAT? I mean,
Similar.
we know it depends on slot. Anyway, it gets normalized. Don't worry about it, right? But yes, I think it could be up, it could be low, right? It may not be up, right? But there will be no. I think it's very subjective. What I find tough, maybe ARCs might not find it tough, right? And what ARCs finds tough, I may not find it tough. It depends on our comfort. So it's definitely your luck. What we can do is make sure that you've got enough experience of looking at a variety of questions. That is all our attempt is, right? What actually happens in CAT, Bhagwan hi janta hai.
Absolutely. And Shashank, all I would say is you should move into the next set if you're not able to solve one set in DI. And I would say the same thing for RC, despite whatever else anybody might say. Make sure that you don't get stuck. Okay. And Shashank, don't worry about it, is what I would say. That's, this is a learning that you can get every time. Okay. That's it. Thanks, Arpita. Arpita asks doesn't mean anything. Asks is asks.
आग से
Okay,
आग से आग आता है.
so let's see you all again in CDC 9. Don't lose hope, guys. That is the most important thing. Keep doing it till the day of the CAT exam. You will surprise yourself in a positive way, not a negative way. That's all I can say. Okay, right, sir? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.